Welcome back to the podcast. It's Monday, December 15th, 2025. Yes, I'm screen sharing. This is just a quick update. This is a post from President Trump, and I want to read it to you now. Now, I'm getting mixed results and comments about this. I started by posting it on Facebook. I made the comment. I saw the post on Truth Social, and initially I thought, hey, I don't know, it looks pretty legit to me, but people have been saying it's fake. So I'm gonna attack it two ways. I'm gonna say it's real because I follow Trump, President Trump, on Truth Social, his platform. That's the other thing, right? It's Trump's platform, and you have to ask yourself, how could something this, if it's legit, which I think it is, how can it be, how could it get on his platform? I don't know. You'd have to talk to Elon, and you'd have to talk to I forget the former congressman and cabinet member that is the CEO. It's, that's in the club that's running this thing, right? But let me read it to you, because over the weekend, Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle, this is how it's looking, uh, that their mentally unstable son, who had had mental health issues for quite some time. They have two sons and a daughter. He slit their throats, murdering them, and then the daughter found him. That's where we are now with the information and I guess the son is being held as a person of interest. We don't know, but everybody said it's the son, and we know because somebody leaked it to TMZ that their throats were cut, and it was a horrific crime scene. And as any type of knife injury is, even if it's just an injury and not a murder, it's horrific. If you've ever seen that level of blood, it's horrific. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, I'm quoting Trump, allegedly, okay? Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away, together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump Derangement Syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace! Exclamation point. Okay. So does it sound like Trump? Yeah. Uh, is the pacing and content Trumpy? Yeah. Trump talks about himself in third person. Trump always presumes he has surpassed all goals of greatness. He presumes and repeats he's always exceeding expectations. This, as MAGA people are learning, is not necessarily true. This particular post, if real, from President Trump or one of his people, is despicable. Now, when I first reacted to this, I posted it on Facebook, and the Trump defenders immediately jumped in, and I was shocked by that. I was shocked. Well, Ken, I guess you don't remember all the things Rob Reiner said about Trump. But Rob Reiner didn't say that about Trump after Barron slit Trump's throat and Melania's throat. Rob Reiner was speaking about President Donald Trump, who works for Rob Reiner indirectly, the same way that many of us are speaking about anyone. We've passed the point of critical thinking and common sense. So there's two things I want to point out quickly here. If it's true, it is sad, and it's the reason I posted it on all my social media platforms and said, another thoughtless, unnecessary post. And that's what it is. I mean, I think it's safe to say that too many of President Donald Trump's posts are thoughtless, and many are unnecessary. Now, see, if you are in the Trump worship camp, that probably triggered you. You may have picked up on it. I've never been in the Trump worship camp, and since it's been such a dumpster fire most of the year, you know, I'm at the gate of the camp. I'm deciding if I'm going to leave or not. And this is when people will say, "Well, leave. You're a commie anyway. You're a Jew hating commie, MAGA hate." Shut up. You sound like an idiot. In fact, some of the comments that were made sounded like the same people that made those comments, like we should kill, every Palestinian because they're all going to grow up to be terrorists. And who cares if babies get killed? Some Jewish babies were killed. So what's the, the game, you know it. Okay. And again, if someone slit the throat of Donald Trump and Melania, which would be horrific, and it turned out to be their son, and Rob Reiner said, well, that'd be unfortunate, right? People would be, pretty jacked up about it. This is the leader of the free world. And again, as people commented to me, and they said, one in particular, I guess you don't know, you weren't paying attention to what Rob Reiner was saying about the president. I pay attention to a lot. And one thing I've learned, especially over the last several years, is there's a lot of Republicans that don't know what free speech is or freedom of religion. And there's a lot of Republicans I've learned, they don't know what communism is. They like to talk a good game, like they're experts on it, but they don't even know where we are. They still think we're a republic. Now, we don't have time to dissect everything because we usually do that. Often we dissect things on the podcast. I just wanted to bring this up because, okay, so if it's fake, it's still unnecessarily, or I'm sorry, if it's fake, it triggered a bunch of idiotic comments. And I'm not going to argue with the fact that there's people on the left that are gutless and some are heartless. But it's time we accepted there are people on the right, some of whom are gutless and heartless. And if we don't accept that, we're going to let this thing run right off the track. Now, we're already going to get our ass handed to us in the midterms. That's a no-brainer because there's so many people around Trump delusional, thinking that everybody wants us to be fighting in Ukraine, fighting in Gaza, invading Venezuela, blowing crap up, being pirates and taking oil ships, okay? But then there's that other level of the censorship that's been accepted and the targeting that's been accepted. So again, I don't want to stray off this. It's simply this. I saw it. I immediately thought it was a real Trump post because it's got all the telltale signs of Trump. And of course, it's on Trump's platform, on Trump's official feed. I mean, that's where I printed. That's what I'm showing you right now on the screen. That's why I put it up there. And I also printed it out in case someone tries to dump it. Because sometimes, depending on what time of night it is. And in the past, this is free speech. Trump has every right to say that. Is it thoughtless? Is it ignorant? If it's true, I do think it's true, and I think it's thoughtless and ignorant. When a couple that never committed violence, now as far as I know, they didn't break the law. So again, it's not like it was the leader of a horrific human trafficking fentanyl cartel who someone broke in and cut his throat. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was just someone else that got deeply, deeply under Donald Trump's skin, much like, the Nick Fuentes of the world and the Tucker Carlsons of the world get under Ben Shapiro's skin and Mark Levin's skin and Hannity's skin. And boy, there's a lot of skin. Not a lot of skin in the game. A lot of money in the game, but not a lot of skin in the game. But if you get to the point where the president of the United States is taking the opportunity, now that both Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle have been removed in body bags, and the crime scene pictures, I believe, are done, and now they send in that crew. That I don't know if you're familiar with the crew. I don't know if you've ever seen a crime scene. I'm sure if you're a cop, you have, or if you've been in rescue, you've seen things like this, or if you've ever seen a house or an apartment after something like this happens. Yeah, it's messy. It's sad. It's horrible. But again, this is very different than, last night our Navy SEALs killed a cartel member. It's very different than that. It was over the weekend, a mentally disturbed son slaughtered his father and his mother, and the sister found the bodies. And then the president had to, as he too often does lately, and I think this is an age thing, and I know it pisses people off, but wake up. You can't have it both ways. You can't beat on Biden, too old, too old, too old, too old, and take all the things he says, the garble. I mean, Trump's getting a little garbly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the knee-jerk reaction that was triggered by me posting this on my social media, and then people coming up at me saying, oh, so you don't think this should be? No, that isn't how it works. And it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but so often Christians get roped into this pissing match. And, everything's forever on the internet, just like video. And I know better. I know that, most people aren't aware of this, but everything's forever. There's a Wayback Machine. And I don't have a problem with Wayback Machines, because way back, same guy. Pursue the truth, expose the truth, and share the truth. Try to do it in an entertaining way, even have some fun from time to time. But this is our country. So if this was fake, it still triggered some real ignorant responses. And if it was real, somebody in the White House needs to explain, or maybe somebody in D.C., a homicide detective, take President Trump out to a scene or something so he learns some. I don't know. It just sounded rough. It sounded like something you would hear from someone who does not have the reputation of Trump. It sounds dark. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, saying that his throat was slit and his wife's throat was slit because of the anger he caused others through a massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with the mind-crippling disease known as me, Trump syndrome. See, because I supported Trump and I elected him 3 times, I guess people think I'm supposed to be in lockstep with the crumbling of my republic. That isn't how I play. I don't get up and say, all right, what's on Fox and Friends? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. Don't pick on Ben Shapiro. Remember to support the right people at the right time and say the right things. Don't you ever criticize Trump. You got the wrong guy. And that's probably why I don't have some big Tim Pool contract. Tim Pool, did you see Tim Pool melt down? He melted down over what? Who did he melt down over? Was it Candace Owens? Yeah, yeah. And then he tried to rope other people in, and Milo had to correct Tim Pool. Tim Pool's one of the biggest podcasters in the world. He has millions of followers. So if you don't know who he is, there I go again with my 13 followers, plugging some guy who makes $1 million plus a month. And we're all out here, not me. There's a lot of us out here that are just telling the truth. We're not attacking everybody else. I think you call people out when they're hurting your industry or when they're hurting the cause. My cause, I would say, is free speech and pursuing the truth. I don't have any delusion of saving an industry. I'm a blip on the screen. But there are people in our industry, both talk radio and podcasting, that do it harm when they speak out of their rectum. And for some reason, certain things trigger them to do that. And it's amazing to see some of the biggest names, not just in the conservative movement, but some of the biggest names in podcasting attack each other with a viciousness. I mean, just going beyond the C word, going beyond calling someone evil, just going off on people that really haven't done anything wrong. They haven't broken the law. They haven't slandered those people. I mean, Tim Pool and who else? Who else is going after? Everybody goes after Candace. And this is just the reason I bring this up is because the type of people that knee jerk to defend a post like this, which I believe Trump made. If he didn't make it, I'll be the first one. I'll stand corrected. I'll be the first one to say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed Trump made that post, but it just reeks of Trump. And I've never been a fan of when an opponent or even enemies are different. They're different than opponents. They're different. I don't consider fellow Americans my enemy if they're not an imminent threat to me or they're not breaking the law and they're not, you know what I mean? And it's hard for a lot of MAGA people to understand that. I'm a MAGA person. You don't think I was at the Trump rallies? I was one of the first people to endorse Donald Trump in the state of Pennsylvania where I live. And I had people from Fox News laughing at me. Are you serious? There's 16 other candidates. I said, yeah, and they're all weak compared to Trump. But anyway, that's another day. I was just disgusted by this. So I don't know if it's someone in the Trump camp or if Trump is, and again, I mentioned this last week, and a lot of people agreed with me. Thank you for that. Not that I need the agreement, but at least you see it. When you get older, things change. The mind is a little different. The levers and the buttons and how you can control your anger or emotions. And it sounds to me that Trump is getting angrier and more frustrated. Because I think behind the curtain, things aren't as rosy as we think they are. And I think he's being manipulated too. And I've also said there's very few entities that can control someone like a Donald Trump. But you have to admit, if you can control someone like a Donald Trump, a billionaire, a businessman, an extremely successful family, a two-time president, if you can get him to change his tune on policy and legislation and everything from AI to gun rights, well, then there's some power there. And we should be paying attention to it. We should be paying attention to whatever that force is, whoever these people are. Maybe they're war whores that just want us to stay in Ukraine forever and think we need to put more boots on the ground in the Middle East. and think we should invade Venezuela and we should take all their oil. Maybe it's those people, or maybe it's another country. I don't know. But I got to tell you, as a human and a father and someone who's seen just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pain and darkness, a little bit. I don't have any story, but I can't even imagine someone taking advantage of Rob Reiner and his wife being murdered by their son for any reason. I mean, I've been in media for a long time, well over 40 years, but even I know when to shut up. Yeah, that was just uncalled for. So if you find out it's fake, let me know. You can email me directly, or you can just post on wherever you're seeing this. But you can email me directly, ken@kenmatthewsmedia.com. I do a daily podcast. I pursue the truth. I expose the truth. I share the truth, and we try to have a good time doing it. There are things that are happening that are much more entertaining than this. This is dark. This is horrific. You know, yesterday we had to cover two shootings, both of which people started to exploit. I see now that the FBI has released the person of interest. They have a new person. They're going in a new direction. Wow. I hope it. You don't think Tyler Robinson got out and went over to Providence, do you? See. That's just a bad joke. But I certainly wouldn't have done that 3 months ago, right? Okay. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. I just don't. I know there's no focus or rhyme or reason to this, but I just read that and I thought, God, because when I saw the story break over the weekend, I was one of the first people to post the story. Go back to my Twitter, and you'll see I was one of the first people because for some reason I don't know why I was on Twitter within the time frame that happened, but I was, and I don't know if it was TMZ or a local affil in his neck of the woods that just said they were found dead, or two people were found dead in a home owned by. And I remember telling a friend of mine, I said, God, can you imagine? Because a friend of mine owns properties, and I said, could you imagine if that was your property, how horrible that would be? I didn't even think that it was Rob Reiner or the wife. And then I remember over the years that it was made public that his one son had issues with mental health and drugs and everything, which is, as a parent, every parent knows any darkness that descends upon your child is a horrible thing. Whether it's an accident, whether it's an addiction, whether it's, and this is why I would be shocked by this statement if I do believe it's real. If it's not, like I said, I'm wrong. But I'm often shocked by statements that parents make. You know, and I've seen a lot of it over the last couple of years. And most of it isn't even directed at me. Not that I care at this point. If you're in talk radio long enough, you get it, right? You don't care. And I don't. And that's why I'm not calling out names and threatening people. It's ridiculous. Free speech is free speech. Think and say what you want. But if you're the leader of the free world, you're the president, and you know, you're the anti-war president, but you changed the Defense Department to the War Department, and we're still in Ukraine, and we're beefing up with Gaza because that's what the vice president wants. Our vice president, Bibi Netanyahu, and his PR man, Mike Huckabee. See, there I go again. There I go again. And what's happening in Venezuela. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I just think that why would you want to do this? Why would you want to even comment on it? And you're the most powerful man in the world. Rob Reiner was like many people in Hollywood. They hate conservatives. They hated Reagan. They hated the Bushes. Oh my God, they despise Trump. And there's just a lot of hate going around. And you're a billionaire and you're the leader of the free world. Let it go. Let it go. I mean, how can we, as MAGA, try to rebuild? Because MAGA's broken. MAGA is broken. And so is America First. And we learned that. We learned it through Israel. We learned it through the Ukraine. We learned it through AI. And now we're going to learn it through digital currency and digital ID, that this American First, somebody infiltrated it, but they ain't American First, because those things I just listed are not American First. So if some American Firster is telling you who we need to be over defending and how you need to get digital ID, well, we've lost it. We've lost it. So how do we get it back? I don't know, but we certainly don't get it back mocking a man and his wife because he was butchered by his mentally ill son. And that on top of the fact that they were just civilians. They weren't felons. They weren't on a watch list. There was no, I mean, how do you get pleasure from that? And you can tell by the text. It was definitely, it was an in-your-face post. Sooner or later, we have to draw the line on this. People have already accused me of being, oh, are you woke now? I can't believe this is the problem with the Republican Party. You're so weak. You're getting all offended by. No, I'm just saying that I can't believe this is happening. You know, President Trump, for a period, he was quite the uniter. And if you look at the empathy and compassion he showed for people, like the criminal pathological liars, Bill and Hillary Clinton, what did he say? Would be bad for the country if we prosecuted her. Yet on the campaign trail, if I'm president, she'd be in jail. Okay, whatever. So, look, if you're not going to get your story straight, stop putting them on truth, because it just reminds all of us that fought for 10 years, and we risked, many of us, much more than I ever did, were risking careers, like the attorneys that defended the stolen election accusations and pushed back on that and all this stuff. So, sorry, I ran a little long. I just wanted to talk about the post on Truth. I want to know your take on it. I hope it's not real, but I think it is. Something tells me it is. And, I'm not saying people have to denounce it. I'm just saying that, like, if Trump were a friend and a colleague, I would have already texted him and said, what the F are you doing? What the hell are you doing? So he's an employee, sort of. I mean, he's in the club, and we're actually the employees of everybody in the club. So, and don't forget, taxes are due in 5 months. So we'll talk soon. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think, though. Again, Ken at kenmatthewsmedia.com. Or you can post, share, like, troll. I'm going to do this thing that all the big famous guys do. Below. Just do it below here. Just below here. Just look for the thing below and do the thing. Yeah. Okay. See you soon.